Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Of course, as always, I'm your wonderful host, Joshua Gitman. And on today's episode, we react to Jimmy Butler requesting a trade, plus the Kings parting ways with former head coach Mike Brown. That's all coming up and more on today's episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Welcome to the show. I hope everyone's had a great and interesting week because it has been interesting. A lot of things going on as we approach that coveted date in the NBA trade deadline, but none bigger than what occurred last night at about 11:14 p.m. Jimmy Butler goes out and requests a trade. Yes, we've been talking about the whole Jimmy Butler situation for a while now, but it was mostly Miami. Is Miami going to move on from Jimmy Butler? What are the Heat going to do with him? Now, the tides have turned, and Jimmy Butler is doing what Jimmy Butler does, and he goes out and makes a scene. And here we are now sitting here on January 3rd, about a month before the trade deadline, and Miami star Jimmy Butler, a guy that's led them to two NBA finals, a guy that's led them to a conference finals, game 7, now wants out of the organization. Let's hear what Jimmy Butler had to say yesterday after their loss to the Indiana Pacers on whether he finds joy with the Miami Heat on the basketball court anymore.
What do I want to see happen? I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball. And wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. But I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court. But I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop, and I want to help this team win. Right now, I'm not doing that.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
Well, there you have it. Jimmy Butler does not find joy playing with the Miami Heat anymore. And 3 months ago, you probably, if you asked me this in the future, you probably would have said you're crazy because Jimmy Butler looked like he was the perfect fit with the Miami Heat. I mean, he really fit that Heat culture, that mentality of I'm giving it my all every single game. I'm going to grind out. I'm going to maximize myself on this team. That was who Jimmy Butler was, and it was a perfect fit with the Miami Heat. Don't get me wrong. But I think ever since Pat Riley made those comments at the end of last season after Jimmy Butler was hurt, remember, rolled the ankle in the playing game against the Philadelphia 76ers, caused him to be out against the Boston Celtics in Miami's first-round series of last year's postseason. After that, Pat Riley obviously made some comments because Jimmy Butler on a video trash talk about saying how he would beat the Celtics and beat the New York Knicks if he was healthy on the court. And, that could be true. That could be not true. But at the end of the day, Pat Riley in his postseason press conference and his State of the Union, which he does every year for some reason, which not really a lot of GMs do that, where they have like this sort of State of the Union, how's the team going after the season is over? Pat Riley does that, and when he had that State of the Union conference after last season, he told Jimmy Butler to shut up and play basketball. Just play basketball if you're on the court. And if you're not on the court, shut up. That's basically what Pat Riley said in a nutshell. Frustrated Jimmy Butler. The relationship hasn't been the same ever since. And then you go to 2 days ago, which this story has completely changed from, okay, Miami didn't give him the extension, a little bit of exploring the potential options of what could be without Jimmy Butler if you're the Miami Heat. Then 2 days ago, the Miami Heat played the New Orleans Pelicans. Supposed to be an easy win for Miami, which they do win. They do win. Jimmy Butler is returning after missing 13 days and 5 games after he turned his ankle, then was sick, and he had to return to competition, which, if you know me, I think that's a bunch of BS. But besides the point, You go into today, 2 days ago against the New Orleans Pelicans. Jimmy Butler takes 5 shots, 9 points, something. Yep, something like that. Yep, 3 for 5, 9 points, 25 minutes. Didn't play in the fourth quarter. Just doesn't really look into it. One of his shot attempts were a one-legged three-point shot, which should pretty much tell you all you need to know about whether Jimmy Butler wants to be in Miami right now. But Butler just looked out of it. And then people are like, okay, it's one game. We'll see what happens against the Indiana Pacers because they were on a back-to-back. So yesterday, they play the Indiana Pacers. Same thing happens. 9 points, 6 shots, looks out of it, standing in the corner. Every time he gets the ball, he passes it, just not really into the flow of the game, looks checked out. Then those questions at the end of the game start to raise. Those questions are asked to Jimmy Butler about, hey, you're standing in the corner. What are you doing here? We know you're Jimmy Butler. You're a superstar. You're supposed to be the guy on this Miami Heat team who's made the finals twice with you as their leader. And Butler's like, oh, I've never had this role. I've never had this role since I was a rookie in Chicago. Well, let's be reasonable about this, Jimmy Butler. You're the one who's standing at the corner. You're the one when you get the ball, you're passing the basketball. And frustration's boiled because Miami Heat executives, people higher up in that Heat front office, have claimed that Jimmy Butler did not give it his all against the New Orleans Pelicans. That made him very frustrated, and that's where really things probably weren't able to recover after that. Butler sends in the trade request, and here we are with him making these post-game comments, stirring up the pot, and here we go again with another Jimmy Butler drama situation. We saw it in Minnesota. We saw it in Philly in the free agency period. We saw it even in Chicago when he didn't get his extension there either. Money talks, people. Money talks. You can't find joy? Well, money is joy if you're Jimmy Butler. Money is joy for anyone in this world. So the fact that you're not getting paid money now and you want to get out, and Miami said no. So he decides to do what Jimmy Butler has done in the past, create chaos, stir up the pot, and completely shift the leverage 180 degrees from where Miami could say, okay, we can hold out, we can wait till free agency, there's plenty of time. There's not going to be a contending team with cap room. We can just hold it out and see what happens, which is why Pat Riley released that statement saying, okay, they're not going to trade Jimmy Butler. Makes perfect sense. But then now Jimmy Butler takes control of all the leverage. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he game plans, how he can figure out ways to take over leverage. But he did. Because at this point, when you watch Jimmy Butler in the past 2 games on the basketball court, he looks like a liability on the court. He is performing so bad and he is doing nothing that he is just impacting the Heat in a negative way. Jimmy Butler, you could see it on the plus minus, was a game low minus 27. Minus 27 in a game they lost by 13. Even though, yes, the game was a blowout against the Indiana Pacers last night, a game they lost by 13. Minus 27. Butler does not get in the fourth quarter. And that's exactly when the Miami Heat made their run. The best the Heat looked all game was without Jimmy Butler last night on the bench. So Butler clearly not giving it his all. Like, he's saying, okay, my role's getting diminished. That's a bunch of baloney. He is doing it because he wants out of Miami. He wants the leverage. He is, with his performance on the court, saying, Pat Riley, if you don't get me out of here, I'm going to hurt this team because I am not going to try. I'm going to go full airplane mode, full autopilot mode, and I'm just going to sit here in the corner while you can just let the other guys do their thing. And that's to the point where if you're Pat Riley, you're looking around and you're saying, okay, this guy is hurting our team more than he's helping our team right now. But I made my statement. Miami in their past has never really dealt with a major trade request like this. I don't think ever in their franchise history, to be quite honest. I mean, Miami were the ones who let Dwayne Wade walk out at the door in 2017. Miami was the one who traded Hassan Whiteside. Miami was the one who pretty much dealt with all of that. Obviously, LeBron and Riley's relationship got shaken, which is why LeBron signed back with Cleveland in free agency. But specifically, trade-wise, specifically, Miami basically controlling what they are doing with their star players. There has never been a situation where the star players had a leverage point in Miami, and Jimmy Butler right now has the leverage point because the way he's going on autopilot right now is making this team worse. The post-game press conferences are chaos, and I can't imagine that it's not affecting the Miami Heat's locker room and team chemistry right now. It has to. I mean, this is what Jimmy Butler does, and you got to give a lot of thought into really trading Jimmy Butler as soon as you possibly can. And again, there is 33 days till the trade deadline, February 6th, so you got time. And trust me, there will be a team. I don't know what team it's going to be. Could be the Warriors, could be the Grizzlies, could be the Houston Rockets. There will be a team that's going to overpay for Jimmy Butler. And why would you overpay for a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler who is on an expiring deal, making $48 million, has a $52 million player option, and may not even re-sign with your team? Because of the playoffs. Playoff Jimmy is a real thing, people. Playoff Jimmy is real. I mean, you saw it. You saw it in 2023. An 8 seed making the NBA Finals. It's only happened one other time in NBA history with the New York Knicks in 1999. I mean, you saw Jimmy Butler beat the 1 seed in 5 games in a 7-game series. You saw Jimmy Butler go up 3-0 against the 2nd seed and winning 2 games in TD Garden as an 8 seed, as a team that lost their first playing game to the Atlanta Hawks in 2023, as a team that looked dead in the water. So you can't tell me that there won't be a team that's going to overpay. But at the same point, if you're Miami, do you really want to trade him? Rather let him walk? Those are the decisions the Heat are going to have to make because we're in this new world now with the new CBA and the second apron and the apron rules. The money has to match. You can't just say, okay, we're going to trade Jimmy Butler and we're only going to get $20 million back. We're going to save $20 million off a trade. That's not how that works anymore. You have to get basically the same amount of money that you sent out back if you're the Heat. So any trade with the Warriors, you can't just say, okay, we want Kuminga, Pajemski, Moses Moody. No, you're going to have to get a guy like Andrew Wiggins, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you have to make the money work. So would it just be better to save some salary by letting him walk and having probably one of the top teams with cap room in the next free agency and probably one of the only decent teams with some significant cap room where you could get some players to potentially sign with Miami? That's what Pat Riley and the Heat are weighing right now. But the problem is, as I mentioned, do you really want to deal with 4 more months of Jimmy Butler and his annex? I mean, this is what Jimmy Butler does to get out of a place he does not want to be in. And the fact that in the report by Shams Charania, ESPN Insider, that Jimmy Butler said that anywhere but Miami, because he knows he has the expiring deal. He didn't say contender. He said anywhere but Miami. I mean, that should tell you all you need to know about whether Jimmy Butler wants to be with the Miami Heat organization anymore. Not even, I want to be with contenders. When most stars from bad teams, which Miami's not even that bad of a team. They're sitting at the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference right now, actually 7th seed, but only 2 games behind the 4 seed Orlando Magic. I mean, they're not awful considering, yes, the Eastern Conference is bad, and yes, there's opportunities for Miami to win some games and move up the standings, but this is not even a bad team. The fact that Jimmy Butler said, okay, anywhere, something must have gone down internally that we don't know about, because the frustration, the post-game press conference, the turn from, okay, Miami's exploring options to Butler's done. Butler's done with the relationship. That turnaround in nearly a week, something happened on the inside that we don't know about. And this situation will be interesting to monitor throughout. Obviously, as I mentioned, 1 month till the trade deadline. Butler We will see if he causes and continues the chaos with the Miami Heat, which I'm assuming he will because that's what he's done in other organizations, and he will try to find a way to get out. He will try to find a way. And again, it's not the worst thing for Miami to trade Jimmy Butler, but I think they have to really consider exploring the option of, okay, we let him walk. What happens? But then again, at the same time, if you let him walk, if you just play it out this season, do you really want to deal with his antics for another 4 months? Those are the decisions that the Heat are going to have to weigh when they're looking to trade Jimmy Butler. Obviously, a package is going to matter the most in any situation in how Miami deals with Jimmy Butler, but I'm pretty confident there will be a team that overpays because they've seen what he's done in the playoffs. And most likely a Western team will probably trade for him because I'm assuming Miami doesn't want to trade into an East team. But there are some West teams that have some assets out there that are intriguing. The question is, does Miami want draft picks or do they want young guys who can help them win immediately? That's up to the Heat organization. That's up to the Heat front office as they evaluate, they meet together and go over what are the next steps in this whole Jimmy Butler situation. But we will move on from that and we will go to a different trade rumor that actually happened in D'Angelo Russell finally getting traded from the Los Angeles Lakers as he goes to the Brooklyn Nets as the Lakers get Dorian Finney Smith and Shake Milton, D'Angelo Russell, Maxwell Lewis, and 3 second-round picks in 27, 2030, and 2031 go to the Brooklyn Nets. The Lakers finally trade D'Angelo Russell after 2.5 years with the organization. D'Angelo Russell is going back to Brooklyn for a second stint, traded from LA to Brooklyn for the second time. First time traded for Brook Lopez, this time traded for Dorian Finney Smith. But we'll get to Brooklyn in a second, but let's talk about the Los Angeles Lakers first in this deal, getting a 3-and-D guy in Dorian Finney Smith. He's a versatile player. He's averaging 10.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, and he's shooting a career high 43.5% from the three-point line. And JJ Redick is trying to implement what he thinks is best for this roster and how he wants to play basketball. D'Angelo Russell, for the first 8 games for the Lakers, wasn't doing that bad. Then he got moved to the bench, and you could see, okay, things are really going in different directions here. It looks like there's potentially a trade coming in the near future. It looks like the Lakers and Russell are ready to move on from each other after D'Angelo Russell picked up his player option, believed in the JJ Redick train, and decided to stay one more year, which honestly was surprising. I think most people thought D'Angelo Russell was going to decline his option, and I think people thought that Russell was going to move on from the Lakers in free agency, but instead he gets traded. He goes back to Brooklyn, and as I mentioned, we will get to him later, but Dorian Finney-Smith, a 3-and-D guy that JJ Redick loves. He was teammates with him in Dallas in 2020-2021 season. And Finney-Smith is just one of those guys who really impact winning. He's one of those players where you'll just love him if he's on your team, absolutely hate him, despise him if he's not on your team. And for the Lakers, a team that has had an up and down year. They're sitting at 19-14 right now. They are sitting in that near playing range, but they are 6th in the West. They are half a game out from the play-in and also only half a game behind Denver for the 4 seed. So there are a lot of opportunities for the Lakers this season to host home court in the playoffs, but also fall in that playing range because currently you're sitting at 4 through 10 in the West are only separated by 2.5 games. So there's a lot of movement that will happen until the end of the season for the Western Conference, but the Lakers are sitting in that essential middle of the pack in the Western Conference right now. And you look at what has been the issue for the Lakers, part of it's been shooting. Part of it has definitely been shooting, and part of it is, okay, we have an established point guard in LeBron James. I mean, let's be honest, people. D'Angelo Russell wasn't bringing the ball up. D'Angelo Russell was playing off the ball, wasn't really thriving in his role with the Lakers. LeBron's bringing the ball up. So why, if you're the Lakers, why are you keeping D'Angelo Russell in the starting lineup in the first place? Which is why JJ Redick ultimately ended up benching him and we got to this situation. But now you get a guy who can really help defensively and can really find ways to guard anyone on the court. I mean, Dorian Finney Smith is one of those players who can defend at all three levels: guards, forwards, centers. He can do it all. Very impactful. Remember, traded from Dallas to Brooklyn for Kyrie Irving, and then now he ends up with the Lakers. In his first game, didn't really have that great of a game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, only 2 points. But obviously, when you come in for the first time, you're playing your first game, it's not going to be, of course, a great game. Dorian Finney-Smith, still very impactful for the Lakers on the court, was plus 11 last night in their win against the Blazers. Only 3 points, though, still getting acclimated to the Lakers system. But I think this move for the Lakers is great. I think the Lakers eventually were going to move on from D'Angelo Russell, whether it was from free agency, whether it was via a trade. And I think Finney-Smith is really a guy who can fit well with the culture, can provide a defensive spark that the Lakers really haven't found this year. And we'll see if he implements him into the starting lineup. I know they've been starting LeBron, Davis, Austin Reeves, Max Christie, and Rui Hachimura. But we'll see if Max Christie goes to the bench and they just do the whole thing where they put LeBron at the point guard position. I'm curious to see how the Lakers approach that. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen, but maybe he'll continue to be off the bench and Max Christie will start. I don't know, but you're looking at where the Lakers are going. As long as they stay healthy and stay the course, you have LeBron James. You have Anthony Davis. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to what you do in the postseason. Pretty much any team in the middle of the pack of the Western Conference. But the Lakers, basketball-wise, scheme-wise, have looked much better with J.J. Redick compared to Darvin Ham. And I think Finney-Smith fits perfectly into that. And I also think Shake Milton. I think people really disregarded Shake Milton in this trade. Shake Milton, a NBA veteran, been around for a very long time, and 7.5 points per game with Brooklyn, played with the 76ers, played with the Pistons. I mean, he's been around for quite a while now, and he's actually made his mark on the Lakers off the bench. I mean, 8 points in his first game, 4 points in this one, a 3-point shooter, someone who can provide more shooting for the Lakers, just someone else to provide a scoring boost when the Dalton Connetts of the world, the Max Christies, the Rui Hachimuras aren't playing necessarily the best. Just another guy as a scoring option, which is actually a very underrated piece in this trade. And Shake Milton's one of those guys who can really go off on a game and could really win you a basketball game because of his shooting, because of his shot creation and shot delivery and shot making. So I think that's also a very underrated part in this deal. And the Lakers also create flexibility in this trade. They save about $15.4 million and currently for next season, they will be $3.5 million below the second apron by getting rid of D'Angelo Russell's contract. Not a bad thing for the Lakers. Obviously, more money will potentially have to be shedded if they want to get out of the first apron as well. But the Lakers are now in a financially more manageable place, which is part of the reason why they did this. And D'Angelo Russell, of course, had his ups and downs with the Lakers. The postseasons were disastrous, especially against the Nuggets, those 2 series in the conference finals and the first round of last year. It just wasn't really where you expected D'Angelo Russell to be in the playoffs, considering his strong caliber regular seasons. But now he goes back to a place in Brooklyn where he had 2 of the best years of his career, including 2018-2019, where he got his lone all-star appearance, and I think he will be very comfortable in a Brooklyn Nets uniform. He scored 22 points in his first game against the Raptors, but then yesterday they ended up upsetting the Bucks in Milwaukee for the second time in a week, which if you're Milwaukee, I don't know why you're losing to the Nets twice, but D'Angelo Russell scored 11 points in the win against the Milwaukee Bucks, but at the end of the day, D'Angelo Russell making an impact with the team that he's very comfortable with, getting that starting point guard role, a rebuilding team, not a lot of pressure to have these high performances, but I think D'Angelo Russell can really find his groove, find his joy for basketball, back on the Brooklyn Nets. And clearly, if you're the Nets, you see D'Angelo Russell you get D'Angelo on an expiring contract. We'll see if Russell decides to stay with Brooklyn, which I wouldn't be surprised if he does, because he seems very happy there, and he seems, as I mentioned, to find his joy of basketball. No pun intended to the Jimmy Butler situation, but some people are happy in some places and some are not. But Russell doing decent in Brooklyn, but that's not the real story here for the Nets. The real story here is, okay, you traded Dennis Schroeder. You traded Dorian Finney Smith. Is Cam Johnson next? Cam Johnson looking like a near all-star this year for the Brooklyn Nets, averaging about 22 points per game, and can really be a game changer for any team that tries to acquire him. It might be a heavy price. It could be about 2 first-round picks if you want to trade for Cam Johnson. But there will be teams out there, like the Memphis Grizzlies potentially, who are looking to get these starting forwards, these game changers who could potentially help you as a contending team. And I think the Nets are definitely going to shop Cameron Johnson, trying to get more draft picks. And I think that will be the story of what happens near this NBA trade deadline. Like, Brooklyn has a lot of say in what will happen. Obviously, Miami a part of that as well. But Brooklyn, with the Cam Johnson situation, there will be a team that outbids for Cam Johnson. There will be a team that overpays for him. You look at what the Nets got from Mikal Bridges, 5 firsts. So you wouldn't be surprised if Cam Johnson got traded for at least 2 first-round picks. And if you're Brooklyn, you're going in the right direction here. You have 31 draft picks currently. In the next 7 years, you have 15 firsts, 16 seconds, and the trade they made in the offseason, something that not a lot of people talked about. They traded the Phoenix Suns picks that they got in the Kevin Durant trade to Houston in order to get their own picks back from the James Harden trade when they sent their picks to Houston to get James Harden to Brooklyn. So the Nets got their picks back, and now they control their own destiny in the next set of NBA drafts, except for 2027 when there is a pick swap between them and Houston. Other than that, the Nets control their destiny in the NBA draft. And the most valuable asset, I say this time and time again, if you're trading, the most valuable asset, whether you have that asset or whether it's on a different team, is your own draft picks. That's why if Houston got the Suns picks, Houston's probably monitoring the Phoenix situation, because if Devin Booker, Kevin Durant want out, the best offer is going to be the Suns their own draft picks back. I mean, you look at a team like the Thunder, who have the Heat's draft picks. Maybe the Thunder try to make a swing at Jimmy Butler and say, okay, you want your draft picks back? I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm saying the best assets are your own draft picks. And Brooklyn has control of their destiny right now with their draft picks. They obviously are capturing the flag and tanking the rest of the season. But Brooklyn is moving into the right direction after the disastrous tenure of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, for a little sprinkle in there for that big 3 in Brooklyn. So Brooklyn is definitely moving in the right direction. We will see what happens with Cam Johnson at the trade deadline. But I think this is ultimately a win-win trade, creates flexibility for both teams entering the offseason, and obviously Brooklyn going in their direction, the Lakers trying to bolster up as they try to make a push in the Western Conference. But let's go on to the Sacramento Kings as they decide to part ways with head coach Mike Brown after only 2.5 seasons under the reins there in Sacramento. The Kings, when they fired Mike Brown last Friday, were 13-18, which was 12th in the Western Conference. Mike Brown actually in the offseason signed an extension through 2027 and was the NBA Coach of the Year in 2023. And now, after a disappointing start, after acquiring DeMar DeRozan from the Chicago Bulls, the Kings decide to part way with Mike Brown. My thoughts on the decision that was very controversial in league circles. I completely disagree with the decision. Completely. If you're Sacramento and you're looking at Mike Brown, right? You're looking at what he has done for your franchise, your poverty franchise. Like, no offense to the Kings. Like, let's be honest here. The Kings are a poverty franchise. Mike Brown is the first head coach in 12 head coaches, the last 12 head coaches, to finish his Kings tenure with a winning record, 107-88 in 2.5 years. Mike Brown led this team to the postseason as a 3 seed, not as an 8 seed, not just sneaking in there, as a 3 seed, ending the longest playoff drought in NBA history. I'll say that again. The longest playoff drought in NBA history. 16 years of not making the postseason. And Mike Brown did it in his first year as the Sacramento Kings head coach. Obviously, bolstered up with Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray really breaking out in his rookie year. But at the end of the day, Mike Brown did something that 12 coaches before him couldn't do. And I understand you got DeMar DeRozan, and the expectations are a little bit higher after a disappointing play-in tournament. But you're 31 games into the season. Like, take a chill pill. Like, if you're going to fire him, at least do it at the end of the year. See where you are at the end of the year, not 31 games through the season. And, like, there's plenty of time for the Kings to go on a winning streak and get back in that Western Conference mix. And obviously, right now, the Kings are on a 2-game winning streak and back to 15-19. But I just didn't understand the move. I mean, this guy saved your franchise. I mean, the Kings are a poverty franchise, and he brought it out of the dust as a 3 seed, 48, 49 wins, only losing to the greatness of Steph Curry in a Game 7 as De'Aaron Fox was limping through the series. I mean, come on. Mike Brown did an amazing job. Mike Brown did something that not a lot of coaches have done in Sacramento Kings history. Hold players accountable. Mike Brown has held guys like De'Aaron Fox accountable. He's held guys like even DeMar DeRozan. I know there was reports about him suggesting going to the bench, but I think that's a bunch of baloney. I mean, I don't think any coach is going to do that, but DeMar DeRozan is DeMar DeRozan, so I don't think he would come off the bench, and I don't think Mike Brown would even offer up the idea. But Mike Brown held a voice in that Kings organization that was strong. And again, the Kings were content with Mike Brown, even after losing in the play-in tournament to the New Orleans Pelicans without Zion. Even without that. Even with that. They were content. They signed him to an extension. And yet, here we are, 31 games into the season, firing him. And you're going to have to give him all the money he signed in the extension, of course. Just an incompetent organization. I mean, Mike Brown was doing a sensational job. And teams adjusted to the Sacramento Kings. I mean, you're not going to have a great year every year. The West is deep. The West is a very deep conference. And you've had your best coach since 2007. Like, if you're the Kings, like, seriously? Like, why? It just doesn't make any sense. And obviously, the drama just doesn't lie in where Mike Brown is right now. De'Aaron Fox, in fact, has some drama internally as well. He decided to not sign an extension. And teams around the league and executives around the league are wondering, is De'Aaron Fox going to request a trade from the Sacramento Kings? I don't think so, but monitor the situation very closely because De'Aaron Fox, I don't think it will be by the deadline. I think if we're going to hear more about De'Aaron Fox, it will be over the summer, but the Kings have not won. And I don't know if he's frustrated about the Mike Brown firing. I don't know if he was frustrated about Mike Brown. I don't know what the situation was. I personally, again, don't think they should have fired Mike Brown, but I don't know if it was De'Aaron Fox, even though reports say it wasn't because none of the Kings Stars players were informed of the decision by the Kings. The Kings front office didn't inform them of their decisions before firing Mike Brown. And De'Aaron Fox said he was fine with Mike Brown. So I don't know. There's obviously a lie here. If De'Aaron Fox declined the extension and the Sacramento Kings front office is saying that the Stars didn't have any decision in firing Mike Brown. So at the end of the day, this situation is going to get interesting in Sacramento, and we will see how they finish the season under interim coach Doug Christie, a former Sacramento Kings player. At least you like to see that former player really getting a shot as a NBA head coach in interim. So we will see how he does, and potentially, obviously, if he does well enough, he will get that interim tag off. But obviously, a long way from that. But you're looking at this Kings team. You're looking at the core of Fox, Sabonis, Keegan Murray. Obviously, DeMar DeRozan hasn't been the fit that the Kings expected him to be on that team. But there are opportunities for the Kings to still come back. There are still opportunities for the Kings to make a move at the trade deadline. Even they could go after Cam Johnson. Who knows? But I think teams have adjusted to the Kings, and I think everyone just needed to take a reset button. And I think the Kings front office took that reset button and destroyed it and said, let's not even do a reset button. Let's just destroy it and start it all over. Let's not even reset our thoughts, which is why I just don't really agree with the decision. And it's only after 2.5 years, and you made the playoffs. I was just perplexed by the decision, and you will see what happens. But obviously, DeMar DeRozan has to get going a little bit more for the Kings. I think even Keegan Murray has to play a little bit better. Malik Monk doing his thing at 16 points per game. The question is, obviously, the Kings' depth not really that strong. I mean, you got Kevin Huerter, other than the core five of Fox, Sabonis, DeRozan, Monk, Keegan Murray. But other than that, I mean, Trey Lyles, Keon Ellis, Doug McDermott, even Jake Crowder not really getting the job done. So could the Kings make a move to improve their depth over the trade deadline? Time will tell. But I think something's going to go down with the Sacramento Kings. I don't think we are done talking about them, but I just don't agree with the decision. Most NBA coaches thought it was ridiculous considering what he did for that organization, and I tend to agree with it. But going on from that, let's get to something positive, and let's go back to LeBron James, as I talked about a little bit with the Lakers trade, getting Dorian Finney Smith. LeBron James turned 40. LeBron James is now officially 40 years old, December 30th, the big day. And I've said it. I had an episode this offseason. I think Michael Jordan's the GOAT of basketball. But there is no hating on LeBron James here. LeBron James is the second best player in NBA history, in my opinion. And some people think he's the GOAT. Some people think he's the best. And for what he's done for this league, going to Miami, winning 2 titles, going back to his hometown, home city of Cleveland, and winning an NBA title after being down 3-1, and then winning in the bubble with all the stuff that was happening with COVID. I mean, you just got to respect the legacy. I mean, the legacy of LeBron James is something that can only be matched by one other player, and we haven't seen it in nearly 20 years. The impact that this man has had on the NBA is something that couldn't really be matched. And the fact that he's doing it right now, playing at an all-star level at 40, I mean, you've seen stars like Paul Pierce, even Michael Jordan, to give LeBron one argument at the age of 40, really regress at an older age. And you see a guy like LeBron James continuing his dominance as the Lakers are sitting 5 games over 500 and are contending for a playoff spot. To see LeBron continuing his dominance, doing what he does on the basketball court, it's something special, and it's something that we should really embrace. And all the moments you have from LeBron James, the crazy chase down blocks, the slam dunks, the stare downs, the funny moments off the court, just got to enjoy it, man. You have to enjoy it because you don't know how much time is left with LeBron James. And we wish you a happy birthday here from the Take Your Shot podcast, LeBron. But, I mean, you just got to enjoy what he has done to this game and enjoy it before it's too late, because there's not a lot of time left. And I don't know when LeBron's going to retire. Could be even this year. Could be next year. Could be the year after that. But time will tell. But just enjoy the moments. Like, the Christmas matchup with the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers, Curry versus LeBron James. I mean, I was totally locked into that game because you just don't know how many times you're going to see a matchup of LeBron James and Stephen Curry ever again. Even the matchups of LeBron and KD, you don't know how many times you're going to see that again. You have to enjoy those matchups while you have them because Father Time is a real thing. And even though it hasn't hit LeBron yet, it will. It will happen. So just embrace the moment with LeBron James. He's doing incredible things. And we will see what he can do in his final stretch of his career with the Los Angeles Lakers. And moving on, let's go to some more NBA basketball talk, and let's talk about the Eastern Conference, as we will check in with some teams in the Eastern Conference. I've got 4 teams for you. We'll talk about them each and where they currently are. And let's start with the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks right now currently sitting at an astounding and I wouldn't even say surprising, but a 24-10 record. They've won 9 straight, which is an Eastern Conference high. Obviously, the Thunder have won 13 in a row, which is a league high, but the Knicks are sitting at 9 straight. Karl-Anthony Towns is playing like an MVP. They're 14 games over the 500. They're only half a game behind the 2-seed Boston Celtics. Obviously, no one near the Cleveland Cavaliers at their record pace that they're going at 29-4. But the New York Knicks, very close to the Boston Celtics. They are just beating up a lot of bad teams right now in their schedule. But what I've personally thought that the New York Knicks have really surprised me about is Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, how many people expected Karl-Anthony Towns to be playing at an MVP level with the New York Knicks? I don't think a lot of people did. I think most people thought Jalen Brunson was the man, and he's still the man. But Karl-Anthony Towns right now is playing out of his world. 25 points a game, 14 rebounds a game. I mean, he's just doing it all. Karl-Anthony Towns has been a game changer for the Knicks, stretching the floor, providing an offensive spark that the Knicks really haven't seen at the center position since Patrick Ewing. And the Knicks are legit, and they will contend. And currently, right now, where the whole Eastern Conference is sitting, I'm going to put them ahead of the Cavaliers. I'm going to put them at second behind the Boston Celtics. And yes, if you've watched my episodes before, you know my stance on the Cleveland Cavaliers. So you can go to previous episodes to see why I don't think the Cleveland Cavaliers are legit. But despite that, I think the Knicks are second. And they're playing like a team that can make the conference finals. I mean, Bridges even. I thought Bridges was not really playing up to par for the first couple months of the season. But then this last month, starting with that major Christmas game statement against the Spurs, 40 points. I mean, you've seen the improvement from Mikal Bridges throughout the season. Even OG Anunoby making his mark at 16.5 points per game. Josh Hart almost at 15 points per game. I mean, the core 5 of this team of Brunson, Towns, Bridges, Anunoby, and Hart have been incredible. The question is, how long can the Knicks really run these guys to the ground? I mean, Bridges is playing 40 minutes a game. Brunson and Towns are playing 35. OG's playing 36, and Josh Hart's playing 37. The question is, how many days can these guys really stay up to par for an 82-game regular season? That will tell. But right now, the New York Knicks playing good. Everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Contributions off the bench from Miles McBride, Cameron Payne, really coming back into form after a couple of down years. So the Knicks are really on pace right now to be the second best team in the Eastern Conference. Next team I want to talk about is the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic, the 4 seed currently in the Eastern Conference right now, they are sitting at 20-15. They are 1.5 games ahead of the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks for that 7 seed position, and the Milwaukee Bucks as well, with that 5 through 7 cluster over there. They are a long ways away from the 3 seed New York Knicks. And the Magic, despite the injuries of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, have been doing an amazing job trying to really hold up the fort. Obviously, it's not going to be easy, but the fact that they are really maintaining that 4 seed, being on a 500 level without their two best players is something that's been pretty impressive. And some of their wins against the Celtics, against the Heat, making these crazy and incredible comebacks, like especially that one against the Heat when they were down 22 points in the fourth quarter and they ended up winning the game outright, outscoring, I think, the Heat 36-9 in the fourth quarter. I mean, the resiliency of Orlando, the play of Jalen Suggs, the play of Cole Anthony stepping up for Banchero and Franz Wagner have been incredible. And Banchero's going to come back sooner than later. Obviously, Franz Wagner going to be out for a little longer. They suffered the same injury, that torn left oblique. But Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony really doing their things. Even Mo Wagner's out for the season with an injury. So the Magic are really facing adversity right now, but they're getting good contributions. And the culture in Orlando is really showing up and showing out. They really have set the standard, and Jamal Mosley has done a great job. And if the Magic continue going at the pace that they are going, sitting at this 4 seed range, getting a home playoff game despite the injuries, I think there should be no question that Jamal Mosley should win Coach of the Year. Obviously, Mark Danluke going to be a part of that because of what the Thunder are doing this year. Kenny Atkinson, of course, with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But Jamal Mosley should get heavy consideration considering all the injuries that the Magic have had to deal with, all the players that have come in and out of the rotation, all the players that have had to step up for the injuries, and the fact that the Magic have still won games against high marquee opponents has been a sight to see. Even though there's been some disappointing losses in there, they've still found a way to maintain the 4. Next team I want to talk about is the Detroit Pistons, who beat the Orlando Magic in their last game. The Detroit Pistons are sitting at 15-18. They have already passed their last season's win total of 14 games, and we're only 33 games into the season for the Detroit Pistons. And they are sitting at the 9 seed right now, only a game behind the Indiana Pacers for the 8th seed. They are half a game ahead of Chicago for the 10, but Detroit here sitting in a position where they're making some noise and they are a decent playing team. You got to give a lot of credit to J.B. Bickerstaff and what he's been doing with the Pistons to already get them above last year's win total. And the Pistons have won 4 out of their last 5 games. They've even have a favorable schedule coming up in their next 4 against Charlotte, Minnesota, Portland, and Brooklyn. So there is opportunities here for the Pistons to make some noise in the Eastern Conference right now, and you've got to give a lot of credit. Cade Cunningham doing his thing. I thought the veteran additions of Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris were going to help significantly with this team. Obviously, yesterday we heard about the brutal injury of Jaden Ivey with his patella, and he will be out for the year. That's a brutal loss. Their second leading scorer at 17.5 points per game. But I think the Pistons can recover with Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, Hardaway Jr., even the centers, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, really providing that spark for the Pistons so far this season. So I've been relatively surprised that not a lot of people are talking about what the Pistons are doing, because there's a situation here where the Pistons could make the playoffs. I mean, they're in the play-in tournament, so why not? And you got to give a lot of credit to that coaching staff and organization. And they've won some decent games this year. They've beaten a team like the Heat, who they've struggled in the past twice. They've beaten the Hawks, who have had a pretty solid season here as well. They've beaten the Lakers twice this year. I mean, this team has had some solid wins, even a win at Madison Square Garden. I mean, the Pistons have collected these marquee wins this year, and it's been a surprising thing to see, but the Pistons are moving in the right direction, and we will see how the rest of their season goes, but they're a legit team to potentially make the postseason, so look out at J.B. Bickerstaff and his Detroit Pistons. Finally, the last team we will discuss is the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers obviously got off to the brutal start to the regular season and are currently 5 games, not actually 6 after their loss to Golden State last night, 13-19, 6 games under 500. They've lost 2, but before they lost 2, they had that statement Christmas game win against the Celtics, and you looked at their schedule and you saw, okay, they had a marquee win against the Celtics. They play Utah, Portland, Sacramento, and Golden State. If they can get their stuff together, they can be 2 games under the 500 and be back to where they're at the point of getting near the playoffs again. But instead, they take a step back. I was going on the show today before they lost to Golden State to talk about how the 76ers could potentially be back. But now they look like they're going in the wrong step. And Embiid, they lost to the Sacramento Kings, and obviously we talked about the situation they're going through. They got blown out to the Warriors, who have had an awful month of December. And you're sitting here now and you're looking at, okay, if Philly's going to play like this, where are the wins? I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule, where are the 76ers going to find a lot of games to win? And they're at a hole. I mean, they're still a game out of the play-in. They're still 4 games behind the Hawks, Heat, and Bucks for that 5 through 7 range. I mean, 4 games is manageable. It's doable, but it's a lot. It's a lot of games. And we will see if the 76ers can recover. But right now, Joel Embiid not being in the lineup. Obviously, Jared McCain, that loss has been pretty detrimental for the 76ers. Him out for the season, looking like he was going to be the rookie of the year. But Paul George, only 16 points per game, really has regressed this season. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey doing all he could to elevate the 76ers. But when Embiid's not on the court, when Paul George is not on the court, when you've got guys like Kyle Lowry missing a decent amount of games, Andre Drummond in and out of the lineup. I mean, it goes on and on for the 76ers with these injury issues. And if this keeps up, there will be some questions about the 76ers and where they are. Because in my opinion, I said it going into the season, the 76ers, this is the best roster of the Joel Embiid era. I personally thought the way Kelly Oubre played last year, the Jared McCain draft pick, Caleb Martin coming in from the Heat after his great seasons there, Andre Drummond, a quality backup center, Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry. I mean, I thought this was the best roster of the 76ers era. I mean, I thought it was better than 2019, and obviously clearly wrong on that one, but it's just been very disappointing. I don't think you explore the options of moving on from Nick Nurse, but I mean, this has gone in a downward spiral. That can you recover? Can the 76ers get hot? And you look at the rest of their schedule for this month, and it doesn't really get that much easier. I mean, you've got OKC, New York, at Indiana, at Milwaukee, at Denver, Cleveland in a 6-game stretch. I mean, you look at how Philadelphia's played this season. I mean, you're expecting them to go 0-6. I mean, they just haven't played well, and it's just going to be a hard time for them to recover. I look toward the end of the season because there's opportunities for them to find wins on the schedule. But if you put yourself in that big of a hole, it's like, how much can you really recover? Like, how many games are you going to get back? I mean, at this pace, I mean, we thought they were coming back after their marquee win against the Celtics, but then they take a tumble and they fall back to 2 teams that have really struggled as of recently in the Kings and the Warriors, and you let them win with Embiid in the lineup. So that's my Eastern Conference check-ins, and that is the show for today. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. I hope everyone has a great weekend, a great rest of their week. A happy new year to everyone, 2025. It's crazy how time flies here. But we go on. We explore the trade deadline in a month. We see all the news that's happening with Jimmy Butler. More trades obviously coming soon, and more NBA news. And we will talk about it here on the Take Your Shot podcast. Thank you so much. Leave a like, subscribe. Tell me how you'd have taken your shots on my takes, and I will see you next week.